down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hey folks, welcome to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 135. Today's very special guest is Lynn Standafer. Lynn, better known as Enduser, internationally renowned drum and bass, more specifically breakcore producer. And very excited to speak with Lynn about his new record, Unquiet, which is available now in digital and vinyl formats through Decay recordings. Unquiet is an amazing record. Not what I am normally into as far as music that I usually engage with, but drum and bass music, electronic music in general is not a strong suit of mine. But I really loved the record. I loved what I was able to hear, and I listened to a lot of the back catalog of Enduser, and I was really getting into it because it's just great music, you know. I don't think it matters what style music is, so long as it resonates with you. And I think a lot of our conversation has to do with that. Obviously, we talk about a specific album. The album of choice by Lynn was Hive's Devious Methods, which is another great record, which is some people kind of consider to be the the originator of breakcore music, I guess. So that was released in 1998, so 28 years ago approximately, and another great record. I mean, just solid from top to bottom, like really great, solid listen. I encourage everybody to go listen to that as well. If you do know anything about that record, maybe you know that there's no information about it out there. Very, very hard to find anything about that record and about Mike Bell, better known as Hive. So I had actually ended up reaching out to Mike Bell directly, thanks to a gentleman I found online who said that he knew him and just recommended I try to email him. So I did, and I got in touch with him, and he was super generous and super nice, and I have to thank him very, very much for just helping me out and answering some questions. He participated in a written interview that I did with him, and I will share that with you all. I will actually put it up on my website, and I will provide the links in the show notes to it. If you have, been curious about where Devious Methods has come from, inspirationally speaking, and from the perspective of Mike Bell directly, and kind of where he was in his life at that time and what was going on. So that's there. And that helped me kind of steer my conversation and help me kind of put things into perspective and figure out exactly how I wanted to format my interview with Lynn. So a very great learning experience for me. I hope it doesn't seem too redundant if you are a fan of drum and bass music in general, and maybe you already know some of these things that I was kind of getting at. But if nothing else, I mean, it's a opportunity to get to know Lynn better and his process and about the new record that he's putting out. It's a great one. It's kind of an ambient breakcore record, which is kind of almost sounds like another genre of music, but it's a great piece. I mean, I think if you are already familiar with Enduser's work and what he does, this is kind of another great, stepping stone in his catalog of things that he does, and it's done very well, and it sounds great. So if you can, we encourage you to pick that up. So just like to say thank you for tuning in, and if you care to help us out, all that we ask is that you do all the things you do with the internet. Like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, review. All of those things help us out immensely. And if you care to help us out in a financial way, you can always visit our online store. Link is provided through my website, psychic-static.com. And that helps us financially keep this thing moving. And also in Psychic Static news, we've just released a new record by a local Providence band called There, There, There. And that is available now. So if you order one, we will ship it out to you immediately. And it's a great kind of psychedelic noise rock record, just to kind of keep it brief. Don't know how else to describe that except for those couple of words. They are playing this weekend, their record release party in East Providence at Myrtle, a matinee show from 2 to 5 with a couple of other great bands, Department of Teleportation, who I've spoken with on this show, and Mirror Men, featuring Rick Pelletier, who I've had on the show of Six Finger Satellite. That's another great bill, free show, early, 2 to 5. If you can make it, come on down. We'd love to see you. And in the meantime, enjoy the show. Hello, Lynn.
Yeah, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Nice one.
Cool, man. It's very nice to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. So it's an interesting concept too. So
Yeah. I mean, it's, it kind of happened all by accident, as it seems most things do. But yeah, it's just a nice way to talk to people, and I find I actually do this often anyway. Like anytime you meet somebody, isn't it kind of common that you just kind of you usually kind of associate with the circles of the arts types, the musician types, and so forth. And when you do, you're like, hey man, what do you listen to? It's just like what can we relate to each other on?
yeah. No, it's a good talk, and a lot of my friends I've been talking to about this as well, because all my friends in my circle here in Stockholm, especially a lot of drum and bass heads and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, like Devious Methods, of course, and it's an American album, so they were
right.
They even knew that, and just the fact that you talked to Mike a little bit, I guess.
I've been in touch with him through email. Yeah.
Yeah, through email. Yeah. So I thought that was funny. That it was pretty cool that you got to talk to them about it too. So.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled by that because I try to do a lot of research in order to prepare for these conversations, and
Sure.
one of the things that I do is I just dive deep into the album and try to look up reviews, interviews, anything about the album. If there's books about it, fine, I'll pick up the books. And on this album and on Mike Hive, there's nothing. There's virtually nothing about him out there. So
yeah, it was a long time ago. I mean, I think it came out in '98.
Yeah, so it was 28 years ago.
Yeah. That's wow, that's crazy.
I know. Yeah, time just flies, huh?
It does.
Actually, I've actually did a brief written interview with him. So I just basically sent him a couple of questions, including a couple that you had asked that you were curious about.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to share that whole interview right at this point. I did, I asked him, I was just like, is it okay to quote this verbatim? Is it okay to possibly publish this in the future? And he said, absolutely. He was just like, whatever you want to do. I'm not hiding. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, because he was hesitant to join us and to actually speak on camera, but he says that he's not hiding. He says that, it's weird that it's so hard to find him, to find things about him, but he's just like, that also kind of makes it kind of cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah.
This mystique about him, I know.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just get right to it, okay? So I have, we're just going to start at the beginning, and I have a couple of, lightning round style questions for you just to kind of get an idea of, who you are and where you came from, so you can answer these as quickly as you like.
Sure.
So when and where were you born?
I was born, I'm from Virginia in 1977, Front Royal. So my family, I was raised, we moved when I was young from Virginia to Cincinnati. And then I grew up there, during my early years, when I found out about, when my musical tastes, came into play, and, through high school and such. And then after that, I've been bouncing around the country throughout my life. I went back to DC area, and I've been out in California and San Francisco for a while, New Orleans, Chicago, Brooklyn, New York. So, I mean, I've bounced around a lot over the years. So it's really hard to say where, my home base is, because now I live in Stockholm, Sweden. I've been here for 5 years. But I grew up most in Cincinnati when all this stuff started, when I started Enduser and when I started my musical, the label I run as well, Sonic Terror Records. That was based in Cincinnati and Indianapolis, where I went to college. So it's been kind of all over the place.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, but so you actually you were born and raised in Virginia, huh? Okay.
Well, I was born in Virginia. Yeah, yeah. So Front Royal is it's a place I've actually like. I was just born as a baby. We moved, when I was like I don't know, just a few years old, probably, out to Cincinnati, and then I didn't go back there until I was like after high school,
Oh,
college.
okay. All right. So you were raised mostly in Cincinnati.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Cincinnati. It's actually a suburb of Cincinnati called Hamilton, Ohio, and so like there was a big, like I grew up around a lot of punk rock and hip hop, and there was a big skateboarding scene there, and those things kind of like those styles of music always kind of collided. I mean, everyone was into punk and hip hop, so that's one of the reasons that this record was so important to me, because it kind of fused all the elements you get, across
Yeah.
the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hamilton, Ohio. And so now, what do you remember about music as a child growing up in the house?
In the house, well, we music was a big part of our lives. My sister and I, we had to choose an instrument to play when we were young. So at the age of 7, I picked the alto saxophone.
Oh,
So and my grandfather was a clarinet player, and so I kind of went. Sister chose the flute, and so that we both had to give little weekend
concerts.
concerts for our grandparents and such, yeah, and everything. So that was always fun. But the music in the house, I mean, my parents were both really into music. We had a huge collection of vinyl. And my dad was really into Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Humble Pie, like old rock and roll. My
Nice.
mom, she was more into singer-songwriter stuff like Simon and Garfunkel, and maybe a little bit of country stuff like some John Denver in there and things like that.
Okay.
That was the time. And but as we grew up, and my dad, he would every once in a while I'd come home and there'd be a new record sitting on the because back in the day you could get records from the library,
Oh yeah.
and he would get like Never Mind the Bullocks, here's the Sex Pistols. One day that was sitting on the table when I came home from
Wow.
school, and I was like, what's this? And my friend Jason and I, we put it on and we were like, holy what? Like, this is crazy. And my dad's like, you're not supposed to listen to that one. But we checked out all the stuff that our parents are listening to, and like I really really fell in love with like the like late 80s. Like the first record that I ever got of my own was licensed, or it was Beastie Boys, License to Ill, right?
That was the first album, you mean?
The one, yeah, with the plane on it.
Yeah, I believe that's Licensed to Ill. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It said 3MTA3 on the back of the plane on the
Right.
records. If you read it backwards, it says "Eat Me."
I didn't realize that little bit of information. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
It's funny. Yeah, they were cheeky back then, as they always were. You know what I mean? So, um, but yeah, that was fun stuff. And then you got Boogie Down Productions and all that stuff. KRS One, and it was like all the like New York City hip hop that I got. But the Beastie Boys were huge for me. And from then and into the 90s, I got like every from all over the place. And West Coast came into the picture, and you had like gangster rap and all that kind of stuff, which had a different perspective. I like the beats and such, and
Hmm.
I don't, that's when bass became a thing. You know what I mean? I feel like West Coast kind of introduced like a lot of like like there was some like 808 kicks and stuff in the Beastie Boys tracks.
Right.
But like a lot of the bass heavy stuff I think came from the West Coast, where the East Coast production was more like just blocky, heavy, like boom bap hits.
Hmm.
So it was a different feel to me, but I loved it across the board. And then of course, like I mentioned, like in Hamilton, a lot of my friends, we were playing basketball, we were riding our skateboards, and doing different things, and um, a lot of the kids, in skating, they were listening to punk stuff, and so that's the first time I ever heard the Bad Brains.
Uh,
And the Bad Brains, to me, it was like full on energy, and it was uncompromised. It was just like it was intense and it was fun. but I just love the way HR's vocals sounded, and I love the way that they just like went full on through it, and it was melodic as well. It was heavy and melodic, and it was perfect. And later I found out, that the Beastie Boys were heavily inspired by the Bad Brains, and that was like one of their biggest influences. So that makes sense to me why it all came together, and that whole culture of, especially when ill communication. No, Check Your Head, rather. Check Your Head came out. That record came out, and it was like a mixture. I think that's when they started to play instruments again. They didn't, because Paul's Boutique came out before that,
Yeah, right. Right.
and then and that was all sampling and stuff. And then they went straight from that. They went right into doing more instrument based stuff. But they still made it in a hip hop, like kind of a package. So I was super stoked to see all that come together. Like my two worlds collided when Check Your Head came out. So
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Right. Now, so said you were born in '77, right? So I think that
Yeah.
only puts you a few years older than me,
Mhm.
and that makes sense because that was true. And I saw it with the people that, like, in high school. I saw that with, like, the people that were a couple of grades above me,
Uh,
because I have brothers that are a little older than I am too. So, like, they're around your age range. So
yeah.
I was getting a lot of that same influence. A lot of that same stuff was happening to me.
Mhm.
I remember Check Your Head being a big one. I remember that being like, whoa, like, these guys, like, we thought these were just hip hop guys, and, like, they're playing their instruments and they're good, and, like, it's like
Yeah.
rock music kind of.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty great, like, kind of momentous point in music, I think, in general, and in our young developing lives.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there ever
Yeah.
any inclination as a kid to make music? Like, did you ever think you wanted to be a musician?
Well, when I was playing the sax, I mean, like I liked it. It was fun, but again, like my family kind of like everybody had to choose an instrument, and we just, I had to be in the band in school and stuff, and I had to play in my school and in the city band, and so it was kind of a chore after a while. And
Hmm.
when you're in school and you carry around a saxophone, like kids look at you funny, and like there's like a jazz band and stuff, and if you get to play with the guy who plays the bass guitar, then it's a little cooler, but you know what I mean. But like,
Right.
not a lot of that stuff was cool back then. So I kept it yeah, under wraps to be honest, and I was just kind of like doing my thing. But when I got older, my buddy Rob D, he had a drum kit. He had a Pearl 5-piece drum kit, and he needed to put it somewhere. And so they put it in my basement. My mom and dad were cool. They let me like live in the basement. I had my own door and everything,
Yeah.
and so I kind of like got to live. They trusted me, and I was a pretty good kid, but you know what I mean. Like, but we had like little jam sessions down there, and then of course when Rob wasn't there, I had a drum set in my house, and I started to learn how to play the drums a little bit,
Yeah.
and I taught myself some stuff, and you know I didn't really. A lot of my friends were in bands, like punk bands and stuff, and I would always go to their practices, and I would check out what they were doing, and I wanted to do something different, and it wasn't until I found one of the guys had a little old. It was an Akai. I don't remember if it was if it was called an S90 or something. It was a little tiny drum pad sampler. With like 8 pads on it. There were buttons more like, and you could sample little phrases and stuff. And they used it in their band just to have like like say like in a Skinny Puppy song or a Ministry song, they would have vocal samples like
Right.
"This is the end" or like "And now it's over," stuff like sinister stuff. They would have samples like that, and I started playing around with it, and I was like, you know what? This is how you make music like the Beastie Boys would make music. You
Right.
can you could put in like drum beats or you like a kick and a snare and just play it out on there, or just sample a little loop and then play it back and then chop it up.
Hmm.
So that was really tedious and time consuming at the time, but that's how I learned to do it. And then eventually they got a computer at one of my friends' band practice spaces to mix the music. And I put a copy of Fast Tracker on there, and like, well, I got my own computer. My sister, she loaned me the money to get my own as well. And I was like, these guys have a computer and you can like mix music, and I want to do it. And so I was able to get my own, and I put Fast Tracker, and then I learned how to make music on that. Um, and then as soon as that world opened up to me, it was over. Like, I mean, that was in the late 90s, mid late 90s, and I was just like, I was blown away. With yeah, I felt like there was no ceiling. I could just keep, I could anything that came into my head, I could do it.
Hmm.
And my friend Dan at the time, and he wanted to make some techno, and I was like, I want to make break beats. Like, I heard this stuff. We went to a couple of small warehouse parties, and I heard about jungle, and I heard Two Bad Mice for the first time, and I was just like, and even like yeah, like a lot of that UK breakbeat hardcore stuff, and I was just like, I want to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's around the time when Atari Teenage Riot started to, they came
Okay.
around in the late 90s.
Yep.
And I was working security. My sister, she's in the Navy, and they were like, we need some kids to do security at the door for a Beck concert. Beck is playing, and the opening band is Atari Teenage Riot. And I was like, what's that? And my girlfriend at the time, she was like, oh, it's like industrial. And she was really into Skinny Puppy and Ministry and stuff. She's like, you're going to love it. You should do security for that show. So I go there, and I did a security bit. I just took tickets and showed people with the flashlight where their seats were in the back and stuff.
Right.
And then I would wander to the floor every once in a while and check shit out. And I was just like, man, this is really cool. Who's this crazy German guy running around with all these big boxes of buttons? It was Alec Empire from Atari Teenage Riot. And I was like, I didn't know. And little did I know, I'd be friends with him, like, and like play with him, and like make on a work on a music soundtrack for a movie with him like years later. But
Wow.
like I was like met this guy randomly, and he was just like hooking all this MIDI gear up in the behind the sound console and everything, and I was just like blown away. I was like, man, that looks like a cool machine, but I'd never seen some of the gear, and I was just, yeah, I was just like a kid, wide-eyed. I was taking it all in. And when I
Right.
saw them perform, it blew me away. And then when Beck got on stage, I was like, I want to leave. Like, I was like, I don't care about Beck right now. It's like, so I went to the merch table, and I bought every copy of whatever vinyls that they had at the time, like Burn Berlin Burn, and I can't remember what else they had out at the time. But I saw these punks. Like, there was a small group of people that also just went there to see Atari Teenage Riot and then leave.
Right.
They didn't care about
Yeah.
Beck either. And I liked Beck, but this was like, no, no, no. My mind was set.
Yeah. So that sounds like a good way to get into the next question I had for you, which was, how did you get into making drum and bass music?
Well, yeah. So basically, after I got my hands on, I learned about Fast Tracker, and I learned how all that worked. I moved to Indianapolis, and I was doing some school there, and then my roommate at the time, he was really into hardcore techno, like Gabber and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I was making like breakbeat stuff. It was a little bit slower, a little bit more experimental. I was just, burning CDRs and kind of like giving them to my friends and making tapes and stuff. And I kept going to raves, and I would go to the rave not just to listen to the music, but I would also go there to grab as many mixtapes and as I could. I would
Oh.
just go because a lot of the DJs and stuff, they would set up tables like it was in the Midwest, so Dormouse and the Addict record crew in Milwaukee, like massive records, they would always have tables. They had a big presence there.
Hmm.
So I would just take all the tapes and buy as much as I could. And sometimes you get some free ones at the door when you go to the rave. And I would just sit and listen to them. Like half of it, I'd be like, "Oh, this is garbage. This is garbage." I'd find some gold every once in a while and be like, "Oh," and it would be really hard to find what something was. And I found Jungle and Raga Jungle specifically, like on a couple of those tapes. And I was just like, "Man, this is really intense stuff. It's like heavy metal to my ears, but it's just like." It's got that raw intensity, but it's got bass and stuff, and it just fit the mold perfectly. And I went home and I was like in indie. I would sit down and try to dissect a lot of these sounds, and I didn't want to sample anything that I had heard, but I remember from my friends being in punk bands, I would try to get like live recordings of drums and chop them up. And then I found out about sample libraries that you could get. So I would kind of mix them up. So I would like you could go to Guitar Center and buy a CD called like Jungle Warfare. And it would have like tons, it would have like 100 sample breaks. It would be like the Amen, the Apache, the Think break, like all the old funk and soul stuff sped up a little bit. But it was all the same sounds that you would hear in Metalheads records. Was Metalheads, when I found out about the label that Goldie was running called Metalheads, I was like, I want to do music like that. Like this is it, man. And I heard Photech for the first time, and it blew my mind. And it didn't matter which DJ from Metalheads was doing a mix. If I could find one, they were always putting in these, like there was always new stuff coming out every other week, and I had to really stay on top of it. And so my I would say like a lot of my student loan money, that was supposed to go to my nourishment and taking care of myself, it went to CDs, and yeah, on the campus in my school, there was always like, oh, if you want to come do a test, you know, and we can like use you as a human guinea pig, we'll give you $40. You know what I mean? It was like there was like a medical building right next to mine. So I would go and they would do swabs in your nose and your mouth, and they would like sometimes draw your blood, and they would just teach people how to do stuff.
Oh.
And I would get $40 a pop in cash.
Nice.
And so and I would skip night class that night, and I would run to Luna Records, and I would go like I had a list that they would pre-order for me. It was anything from jungle and drum and bass to Aphex Twin, which I found out about through the rave scene, to Alltecher and things like that. And I would just totally, just like, what's on the list that I can afford this week? What do I have? And I would just go through and just pick up what I could. And I would go back to my car, sit in the parking lot at school, eat a cheeseburger, and just vibe out, and then run in for the last hour of class. And be like, oh, I was here the whole time. Like, I'm just gonna get the notes from Bob here, and But then I'm whispering to Bob like, oh my God, you should hear this new track. This is amazing, So, I music consumed me when I was in school, and so I would just run home, and I would try to, like I said, I would dissect everything and just redo it in my own way. I loved melody. That's one thing that I think a lot of the early drum and bass and jungle lacked, was a lot of melody.
Yeah.
But that's what drew me to things like Aphex Twin and more of the IDM, like Square Pusher. Luke Vibert was a huge influence as well with his different projects, Wagon Christ and Plug. I loved those records a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, Devious Methods. Yeah, it was one of those ones that I found during that time as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is early 2000s. You're in college at this point?
It was late 90s. Yeah.
Oh, it was late 90s.
Late 90s, yeah.
Oh, so you found Devious Methods like when it came out around 98?
Yeah, it was around 99. Yeah, 98,
Okay.
99. Yeah.
Oh, so you pretty quickly. Okay.
Yeah, I found it straight away.
Yeah. You're sharing a lot of like really great information that actually relates to, not surprisingly, it relates to Hive and his kind of like career, as well as from what I found out interviewing him. Yeah, you guys share a lot of similarities. It's kind of great. You're around the same age too, I believe. So, so when I was asking you about the drum and bass music and how you started getting into it, I realized something about it in general that I'm like kind of perplexed by. Is this like I don't really know what drum and bass is so much. Like I've never really been a huge fan of anything in the electronic realm. So like, because like when I was doing research, I've noticed that like you were credited as a breakcore producer.
Yeah.
And like Hive is credited as a DJ, and like I don't know, like is there a difference between like DJs and producers, and like what title exactly do you fit under, do you think?
Well, DJing, I mean, the thing is, I've never really been like, when I perform, I do live shows.
Yeah.
Like I take equipment with me, and I like remix and put the songs together like in a live setting with machines, and then like there could be a laptop and like a sampler, or like a keyboard, or like pads and stuff to like tap stuff out, and just kind of resequence and do that. So that's kind of just like a live PA, like a live set. But I produce the music, and Hive's a producer as well, but he's also a DJ where you play a DJ set of other tracks for people like at a party or something like that.
Does that mean like being a turntablist? Specifically?
Well, it's a turntable. I mean, some people are like turntablists, and some people just like mix the tracks.
Yeah.
So you can mix the tracks together together and blend them so you get one experience, like an hour long or 2 hour long
Right.
experience
Okay.
where it's seamless, kind of you just mix the tracks together, which
Yep.
is it's a skill. A lot of people are learning about it nowadays, especially it's becoming more and more popular. But turntablism, more like cutting and scratching and stuff, that's something that's a thing in itself.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure how much Mike did of that, but I think he's probably into that. I mean, I would say people like DJ Shadow, Introducing, which is another, I should give a shout out to that record. That
Sure.
was a record that definitely changed things for everybody.
Yeah.
And I almost chose that one when you asked me which record like
Oh,
had
I've
the
already
biggest
covered
impact.
that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I almost picked that one, but I think for my style of music Devious Methods changed the way I write music, in general. It gave me the courage to mix things from different genres
Hmm.
that I was influenced by,
Right.
and kind of reach out a little bit more. That's one thing that record did for me.
Okay.
So
So going back to this question though, so like,
yeah,
what is your official title, like as a musician, and like what you make? Like, are
yeah.
you are a breakcore producer? Is like what I had
I
read.
would
Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, a producer. Yeah, I produce like breakcore music, and I mean it skates that line between drum and bass and breakcore. Breakcore is something that's really hard to define.
Yeah.
I would say that like, for me, because that term, that genre, I don't think really it started to hit my ears, and I'd never even heard of it until like the early 2000s. But I would say Panacea's Low Profile Darkness came out around 97. That one, and then Atari Teenage Riot. Alec Empire did a solo album called The Destroyer. I think a lot of people credit that with being the first breakcore record.
Hmm.
And the only difference is it had a lot of distortion on it. So they used the same break beats, same
Mm-hmm.
bass lines, the same type of sounds, but a little bit faster. And then everything was just chopped up more and just really more punk rock kind of sounding. It was more
Hmm.
abrasive.
Okay.
And so and that stuff, and there were definitely no rules. It didn't fit the same song structure. So it didn't just go like, it didn't evolve. So it was harder for a DJ to play and mix those things together. So breakcore DJs were more like the C64 from Toronto is like the dawn for that stuff. I mean, he was one of the first guys whoever I saw mix that stuff and just like blew my mind. Like he would just, he could mix noise together and make beats out of it, and he could take stuff that was like 200 beats per minute and just slam it together, and it sounded perfect. Like he
Hmm.
was a master at it.
Wild.
But DJing, I DJ now, at like clubs, and we have like a monthly here in Stockholm, where I DJ drum and bass and jungle and a lot of halftime stuff, so more laid back, kind of chill.
Would that
Yeah.
be considered dubstep?
No, dubstep's around 140, 145, I think.
Oh,
140.
do these things have specific like DPMs
And
or
basically
BPMs?
BPMs. That's basically what determines that's the main like the deciding factor in what something is, to be honest.
Oh,
So like
okay.
dubstep's like 140. Drum and bass is like usually about halftime is like 170 to 174, and then most drum and bass is 175, I think.
Oh, wild.
So and you got, and breakcore is more like, you can go 180 to 200 plus. But then again, when you have those high numbers like that, you can easily use the halftime aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could drop something like, say, you've got like a track by, I don't know, like a hip hop track. It's like 80. You could mix that with a drum and bass song that's at 160, but you just double it. So
Right.
like you can, or you could speed it. You can find that sweet spot in the middle where if you want one to be faster or slower, you can kind of adjust them.
Oh, wild. Okay.
So breakcore did a lot of that, messing around with, you could play different genres, and hip hop was halftime to a lot of drum and bass. So that's why a lot of MCs and vocalists, Ronnie Size was a great artist, who still is, but I mean like in the early days, like when I first heard like MCs working with, drum and bass music, I mean he had collaborations with anybody from Method Man, Zach De La Roca, and then a bunch of guys from Bristol that he worked with as well, that were just like, it was like hip hop but drum and bass.
Oh, wild. Okay, man, that
Yeah,
that opens up a whole fucking new realm for me now.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was like I just having a hard time understanding a lot of this style of music, you know? I mean, because like
Mm,
I've never been a huge fan of it, though I do realize that there are some artists that I've definitely, dove into.
yeah.
But so like the drum and bass and jungle music scene is weird to me, and thankfully I don't feel alone in this because in my interview with Hive, who I'll just refer to as Mike from this point forward,
Sure.
I asked him what he was listening to at the time of this recording,
Hmm.
and what he said was, "quote I was heavily into Mowax record stuff,
Yeah,
metalheads, but this was before I was truly into jungle D&B.
yeah.
It was still pretty new to me. I didn't know how they made it, and this is probably why my album came out so different."
Mm.
So that's just direct relation to what you were saying, like the whole metalheads thing, and like he didn't know what jungle and bass and like drum and bass and jungle was at the time that he was making Devious Methods.
Yeah.
Um, so like I don't know how you make this music either. So I mean, for you to explain to me like a lot of the labeling of like breakcore and dubstep and so forth is just simply a changing of the BPM, the beats per minute.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay. So for a novice, I mean, what would you recommend to someone be their first piece of equipment to get to experiment with?
To start producing this type of music.
Yeah.
Um, Nowadays, I would say I've always been a fan. Like even after I got my hands on that first Akai sampler, I still would always use a combination of Akai, like an S2000, or even like I had an MPC at one point, like hardware, and then just because it's easier to play it,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of tap out ideas and record it. But nowadays, you really don't need that as much. You can just get a computer and maybe something like Ableton. I use Renoise Tracker as well. It's still like the fast tracker. It's an old school way of writing music. It kind of goes up and down, and you kind of code it in there. It's really weird, but Ableton is a good for a novice for a starting point. I would say that's a good place. And then in addition to that, to get like a hands-on feel, you can get like a piece of gear, like some kind of, and I get there's a lot of companies that make them. Just little like a launch pad, like just like it's a little just pads or a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
and you can play the drums on that, or you can play them on the pads, and then on the keyboard, of course, you can write your melodies and such on there, and you record it directly into the workstation, into Ableton, as MIDI notes, and then you can kind of you get your main arrangement down, and if you want to move things around, then you've got the notes to actually play with. You can duplicate them. You can move them up and down an octave. You can,
Okay.
you can say, oh, I want a bass line, so you just take out the lower notes and just copy them to a new channel,
Hmm.
and it's really cool what you can do these days. It's the workflow is it's a lot easier than the way I started off, and I think my workflow's evolved over the years tremendously,
Mm.
and I'm thankful for all these companies that have put in the work, because it's almost like you evolve with the software. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I've started to use Ableton out of necessity, because I was using Renoise and tracker programs, and when I used Ableton, I was like doing it only with collaborations with other people, and so I was like, okay, and now I kind of made it my own thing, and then now as the software evolves, I'm moving with it, and I'm like, oh, this new features that they just added, I'm using that now. This is something that I want, and now it's a real thing,
Hmm.
and it's yeah, it's constantly evolving, and it's just getting better and better every day.
Cool. All
So
right. Well, that's hopeful for a novice like me to kind of think about how to maybe even make something or incorporate these types of elements into other styles of music.
sure.
So without going too deep and maybe sounding too redundant to your audience, who's obviously more familiar with like the D&B kind of music, is that like
Mm.
uh, is like drum and bass and jungle more of a lifestyle? Like, is that why
I
I'm
mean,
I'm kind of like seeing it as like this peripheral thing?
it is in a way. I mean, it's really. I mean, in places well, my for instance, my record release party that's next Friday in Bristol, United Kingdom. that is like kind of like for me, it's like a home base for jungle drum and bass.
Hmm.
A lot of people are from there. I mean, trip hop as well. I mean, like Ronnie Side's from there. But like Massive Attack, Portishead, Tricky, like all that stuff is from Bristol.
Right.
And so it's a very, very dark vibe, very cool, very chill, kind of, like very, very deep, deep mood. It's a port town. It's kind of like I don't know. I could compare it to Baltimore in America, maybe, or something like that. It's kind of
Hmm.
it's a little bit gnarly, but it's a little bit like just
Yeah.
it's raw and it's got like a vibe to it.
Old
Um,
industrial
it-
working class kind of.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of the good music comes out of places like that. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So,
Yeah.
and so it's what's people need something to do and need something to identify with. The truth comes out in places like that. You know what I mean? You don't have
Of
fake
course.
music. Fake music doesn't come out of places like that. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, I would say the lifestyle. I mean, like yeah, jungle. I mean, when you go to a jungle party or at a rave or if a DJ's playing or even now if people are doing live shows, um, it's gonna be it's a lot of people who I mean, it's their life. They
Right.
might work a 9 to 5 all week, but as soon as that Friday hits, they're in it for the weekend. And a lot of people are in the scene, they do something in the scene. So it's like if you're not a DJ or a producer, or an MC even, or you're an artist like who does flyers or does graphic design, like my buddy Max, this is the new album here.
Oh yeah.
My buddy Max Thompson in Stockholm, he did this new, it's a painting that he made. And so I was just like, hey man, I was at his house and I saw that painting across the way. And I was like, that needs to be an album cover
It needs to be my
for
album cover.
my album cover. Like it's like the record I'm working on right now. That's perfect. So he was like, okay. So we sorted it out,
Oh.
and we just signed the first 100 copies tonight over here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, on the table. But yeah, so it's a lifestyle, man. Like people, they're all behind it, and it's just it's a big family across the board.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Well, because you mentioned your album and the album artwork, I was going to ask you about it because the cover art for Devious Methods is such a
yeah,
cool piece. It
yeah.
was done by Kalen Ackerman, better known as Mir or Mir One.
Okay.
You're familiar?
No, not really. But
Oh, okay.
I know the album cover. I didn't know other art by the artist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the album cover for Devious Methods?
Oh, I love that. I mean, it was so chill, but it just looked like someone who was contemplating. It's the law. Is the guy as a lion, right? Like against the
It's got like
tree.
a tiger head, I think. Yeah.
Tiger head. Yeah, yeah. Just chilling against the tree. I
Right.
think smoking a spliff, like kind of like
Probably. Yeah.
yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just kind of
Laced with something, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. Some intensity there, but no, it just had a good vibe to it. It was colorful as well,
Mm.
but yeah, I love that record. Yeah, I really it popped and it stuck out to me, and it was a mixture. It looked like I probably imagine would be a self portrait of maybe Mike at the time. You know what I
Ah.
mean? You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like when that's what I always thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, from what I
Like
gathered, he was smoking a lot of pot and might still. I don't know. I didn't ask him. I didn't ask him
yeah,
directly, but definitely a lot of bowls back then,
yeah,
from what
yeah,
he tells me. But
yeah.
so Max Thompson did your your artwork for your cover for your album.
Yeah, that's
Can you
correct.
speak to what that image represents to you?
Well, when I saw it, the overall vibe of the album is kind of a tribal feel because when I got here, I was alone. I didn't know a lot of people. I moved here because my daughter was being born.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom was from Sweden, so I came here for my daughter to just not grow up in DC because that's where we were living in the last place in America, and it didn't feel like the right place to raise a kid.
Mm.
And so when I got here, I just kind of replanted myself, and I kind of found this small community, which grew pretty rapidly. It's like I said, to the point, and now I have like a monthly with these people, and I've got a crew around me, and I feel really at home. When I saw that image, it's kind of a tribal kind of feeling to me, like the way that it's drawn. It's
Mm.
just kind of got this like kind of I don't know, almost runes written in it, and I don't know. It just feels kind of cryptic, And
Yeah.
I like that kind of like it's something that we get, but it's like a secret, you know.
Mm.
And it looks like a heart, which to me, I mean, obviously represents a bond between people, and you know,
Mm.
a share of love for something. And for me, it's just the whole album. It's just dedicated to my life here in Sweden and the people that I've grown to know,
Wild.
and it just it embodies that perfectly. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Um, I'm curious, what do you consider as your primary instrument?
I would say, well, right now, I mean, I basically sit behind, I write everything but the melodies and such behind a keyboard, like a piano.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I play the melodies and everything on that. And I do have a guitar. I play that a little bit on some of the stuff, but I only like, I'll do little loops and samples and stuff. And then, I'll use like a lot of different effects chains and stuff to
Hmm.
just get like the right sound.
Okay.
And then, but my primary instrument would be just like, yeah, the keyboard
Oh, okay.
and the sampler, of course. So.
Yeah, yeah. Those kind of go hand in hand, assume, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. When you sample something, I mean, if you're sampling something, you can put it across the keys, so you can get different. You know, you can play that sound, or you can just turn it into like kind of a drum machine, or whatever you're sampling. You can just kind of tap it out on the keys and then record it. So.
Right, right. So, how much live instrumentation is on the new record?
Not much. I would say probably only about like 15%.
Oh,
I mean, like the melodies are played. They're
right.
played live and stuff like that, and then they're recorded, and then they're layered, and then they're manipulated and chopped and sampled in even further.
Yeah.
So it all starts off as like me playing the melodies and such. But there's a lot of layering and chopping and resampling and then rearranging.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So
Because so the new single off or at least the first single off of the new album is Northern Tribe,
that's
right?
correct.
And has an incredible opening, I feel, like
Yeah.
which definitely gives this kind of native Nordic vibe about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, where does that come from?
That one, one night I was sitting there, and I had written the track without the intro. The melody comes again in the second part, but I
Mm-hmm.
played that on the keyboard on the piano, and then when I was sitting there one night, I was just my daughter had gone to sleep, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna pick up my guitar, and so I played the same melody on the guitar, and just recorded it in, and it just popped up in my head, and so yeah, and
Oh,
it just
okay.
and then it just layered a couple of other guitar parts on there. So
Oh, so it's not a sample of any sort. It's actually
no, that
something
I
that you
played
wrote.
that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. So and
yeah.
and so is there anything in Sweden that brought this native influence, like specifically, like
Um,
like
not
like
not
native music, traditional music, anything like that?
not really. I mean, a lot of the only traditional music that I have experience and like exposure to here is like dance band, which is more like their four square, or what do you call it, like rock and roll kind of happy upbeat
Oh,
stuff, kind of like folk music.
oh, isn't
But
ABBA from Sweden? No,
ABBA's from Sweden. Yeah,
they are.
yeah.
Oh,
There's an
okay.
ABBA museum here,
Oh,
actually.
Jesus. I
Yeah,
bet
I've
there
been
is.
there. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty
That's
deep.
cool.
Yeah. But no, I really I don't think like musically there's not a lot of stuff I mean, yeah, I just think that the visual vibe is more what I've gotten from the culture
Yeah.
here with the
Well, because I know,
rooms.
like, I'm here in the Northeast, so I mean, there's a lot of like Native American presence here. I mean, like even
Okay.
some of the cities and towns are named from Native language, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was something kind of more kind of evident in Stockholm that is like kind of speaks to its history or something like that.
No, I mean Stockholm to me is a very metropolitan place. I mean, like if you go outside, like I've spent some time. This record actually, the biggest influence that I got from just the is from the climate that we have here, and I've the that track that you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Let's see, I think four of them I started on a trip up to a place called Rantajärvi, which is near the Arctic Circle.
Oh,
And we didn't see, we were there for a couple of weeks and we didn't see the sun at all. And it was in the winter 2 years ago.
yeah.
And and but yeah, so Northern Tribe and Trial by Fire, the opening track on it, I wrote those up there in my friend's little home studio that he had. I started them there anyway,
Hmm.
uh, and um, and I was just sitting inside in total darkness and freezing cold. I mean, you couldn't even go outside. We went. The only time we go outside is to go to the sauna. There's a separate house that has a sauna.
Yeah.
You go there for a couple of times a day for like an hour, and then you jump out. You jump naked into the snow, and
Oof.
then you run back into the sauna, and do it all over again, and just
Hmm.
shock your body. And you know, it was just like, yeah, it was so weird. We went for a walk. We went snowboarding for a little bit one day, and we're walking through this small town, and there's another track on there called Street Lamp,
Mm-hmm.
and that I remember the street lamps. That's where that came from. That there would be one every 100 yards. You would have another street lamp, and there'd be a house there, and some of them were broken. And apparently, one of the guys up there, there was no one around. It was so desolate. But like some of them were broken, and my friend told us that one night this guy's wife didn't come home, and he was mad at her, and she was at the pub in Finland, because Finland you could just drive over to Finland, and she was at a pub, and he was looking for her, so he went out with a shotgun and started shooting his gun in the air, and he was shooting at the street lamps so she couldn't find her way home, uh, and so it was really weird. But yeah, but
Yeah.
we walked by one people's house, and they were just the whole family was sitting at the window waving to us like they hadn't seen human beings in a
Wow.
100 years. You know what I mean? It was just
Right.
so isolated. So
Wow.
that was a very, very strange place.
Huh. Interesting. That sounds so cool to like go and experience that. I'd love to try to get up there at some point.
Yeah.
So you were speaking about some influences, and obviously those are some of the influences that helped shape some of the songs on your record.
Yeah.
So now you're essentially composing instrumental music. I mean,
Yeah.
like there are some elements of vocals that come into your music, and not, maybe
Mhm.
not specifically the new album, Unquiet, but I know that I dove into a lot of your previous work as well, and so there's a lot of lyrics and a lot of vocals, but they're not your words per se.
No, it depends on the different records. I mean, some of the early stuff I used a lot of samples and stuff and kind of mashed things up. But then once I got like a little bit more, I had access to other artists and studios. Then I started to collaborate with people more.
Hmm.
And so there was one guy in particular, Sol Thomas. We wrote a couple of songs together. Blacklight off of the Left album was one in particular. It was more of a trip hop. A lot of the time when I work with vocalists, it's sometimes I change the tempo. I slow it down a little bit,
Hmm.
just so it's easier for them to work with. But again, I think that's like 160 and 80 beats per minute. So it's kind of like on that you can blend it.
Right, right.
But but yeah, I love working with vocalists, and I've never really any of the lyrics I don't think I've written any of the lyrics for any of the stuff that's coming on those records. Um,
Hmm.
I've done some like some stuff called Muter, which was more grindcore, electronic grindcore, with me playing guitar and just screaming, and that's some really hard. I don't even think any of that's on Spotify. They're on 7 inches floating around.
Oh, okay.
But for end user, no, I let the lyrics. Whoever I collaborate with, it's like they do their thing, I do mine, and we meet in the middle.
Right.
And sometimes I've had really great opportunities, like one time, actually, I sampled the Swans, a track, and Jarbo from Swans got word of it, and she contacted the label and said, like this isn't cool, like somebody used my stuff, so we want to come up with a solution to figure this out. And the solution that they figured out was that I would have to produce some music for free in the future.
Hmm.
So I got some CDs from Pro Tools studio like files, session files, in the mail, and I was living out in San Francisco, and it was wrapped with a little bow on top of it and everything. And she says, "Here, Lynn, do what you will with this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love the Swans." You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and so I was like, "Okay," and I made some stuff. And in the end, she says, "It sounds great." And she said, "It's a little too digital for what we wanted on our record, but you can use it to do whatever you want with."
Hmm.
So I ended up just putting that back out onto one of my own records
Yeah.
in the end. And so that was a really cool thing that happened.
Huh.
But I always give people their, yeah, it's usually the vocalist is their that's their realm, and I work in mine.
Yeah.
So.
All right. But so when you're composing music that is essentially instrumental, I mean, where does the inspiration come from, and how do you know like what to name a song or even an album?
Well, I mean, it just comes as the vibe, whatever mood I'm in. I mean, to be honest, like the album titles and things, they all mean something to me. Like, let's see, like the one I wrote, which is a Calling the Vultures. It was a trip hop kind of album for me, and I was changing up a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And I knew it was going to be a risk because I just done a lot of drum and bass for Outbreak Records in England, and everyone was wanting me to do drum and bass more and more and more.
Hmm.
175, formulaic, all the time, the same stuff. And I was like, no, I want to do a different one. So I called that album Calling the Vultures to kind of like, hey, come at me. Like, tell me
Yeah.
that I'm doing something wrong, even though this is what I want to do.
Right.
And then I did get some people said they love that album. Some people said, oh no, it's not drum and bass. I don't like it. So then I wrote another album after that. It was called Pushing Back, which was I was pushing back to those people, to the critics, and
Right.
I did, it was more tear out crazy stuff. It did have some trip hop stuff on there, but and the one after that was Even Weight, where I mixed both, and I kind of, so it's like,
Yeah.
and all the track titles. I mean, and a lot of those do have collaborations in there, and like I remember on Calling the Vultures, like the first part of the album's a little bit slower, and then the middle track is called Wednesday. Like Wednesday is the middle of the week. That's where
Hmm.
things change for everybody. And so Wednesday in the album changes the vibe of the record. So
Hmm.
like it goes up to Wednesday, and then after Wednesday, the rest of it is a little bit faster and a little bit harder. So
Yeah. Like
and
weekend warrior stuff.
then it gets crazy, So,
All
but
right.
all the titles mean something, and it's just whatever mood I'm in and whatever I'm doing at the time. So,
Yeah. Well, so a lot of the time, like when I have these conversations, I draw a lot from lyrics and
yeah.
from the music. But so, can you explain like what's it like to try to make emotive music without lyrics? Like, do you think that's harder to express emotions without it?
No, I actually think it's a lot easier for me because, like, I'm a big fan of people like Brian Eno or Peter Gabriel.
Hmm.
A lot of the, like ambient and just atmospheric, like listening music and just kind of laid back. And again, Richard James. Like I can sit and if I just play something on the keyboard, and I just feel a vibe. I just go with it, and I'll just, I just work with melodies, and when something, I just play with whatever I'm playing. I just sit there and experiment, and I'll find something I like, and it just once I find it, then the accompanying instruments will just build on top of that, and then I can just, yeah. It to me, it's my favorite thing to do in the world, really. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like to sit there and find a sound, find a melody, and then give it some friends to sit with. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
And
just
it helps build out the song as far as like what the feel is, right?
yeah,
Like that's this emotional feeling that you want to kind of exude with through this music.
yeah,
But so that raises an interesting question. Like, so if you have an instrumental piece like that where it already is speaking to you and kind of doing something inside of you and trying to kind of channeling how you feel,
hmm.
if you were to sample lyrics or vocals on top of that, might that change the overall vibe of what you initially had?
Usually, the stuff that to me, the stuff that's really close to my heart that I've written, like the track called like "End of a Beginning" is a good example. I would never put anything on top of that, or like I wrote a song for my grandfather called like "In My Sleep" instead of "In My Life," and like I would never put anything on top of that. Those things, those pieces, they exist on their own, and that's it.
Hmm.
But a lot of the stuff that I did, if I'm working with a vocal that has an emotion already to it,
Hmm.
with it, then I try to accompany that. I try to add to that. I don't
Okay.
try to take away from it at all. And so if I ever sampled anything or if I work with somebody who's got their own vibe and they bring that emotive aspect to the table, then
Yeah.
I'm the one who will work with them and I'll just kind of follow their lead.
Oh, okay. So usually in your own work, like if you have vocals or lyrics that you've incorporated into your music, most likely that's where it started.
That's where it started. Yeah,
Ah,
that's the foundation. Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's go back again a little bit. Let's go back to November 10th, 1998. That's when Hive's Devious Methods was released.
Yeah.
Where? How old are you in at this date?
And so I'm from 77. So how old would I have been then? So 21, is that right?
Okay. And
Is that
where in
right?
your life are you at that moment? I guess you're probably in college at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So I was in Indianapolis, and when I first got the record, I mean, it must have been the year that it came out, because it was given to me by like the guy who ran Luna Records
Hmm.
in Indianapolis, and I remember getting it. My sister, she lived in Cincinnati, and I took a road trip and I listened to the record the whole way there. And I remember hearing that Bad Brain sample in it
Hmm.
from Reignition on ultrasonic sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I just blasted that track. I played it on repeat probably 10 times on that hour and a half drive. And I was just like, I was going crazy. And I got to my sister's house, and her boyfriend, he was in the military as well with a bunch of his friends. And they were like, they were all musicians and they loved to jam, and they played in like garage bands and stuff. And there was a guy named Craig who was there, and he had a little bit the weird taste in music in their bunch. And I was like, Craig, come over here, listen to this. And I put it on, and it was like when everybody had the stereo was with the TV, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
underneath the TV, you had all the records and CDs and the big speakers and everything. And we sat on the floor and just looked at the liner notes and just read all of it and just listened to that song and the rest of the album over and over. And he was like, they call me Lenny. He'd be like, Lenny, this is incredible. What is this? It's not like because we'd already heard of Tricky, and he had rather, you know, like the stuff we vibed on in electronic world. And
Yeah.
he's like, it's faster, but it's great, and this is like punk rock, and it's just so weird. And I'm like, yeah, well, this is, you know, it's more of this jungle stuff I'm telling you about. And so for me, it was like one of the greatest things about that album to me when I love sharing it with people.
Sure.
Like I heard something that it was a mixture of everything that I had been listening to, hip hop, punk, you know, and then jungle and drum and bass, and then it had these sci-fi movie samples all over it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that one track that's experiments and synthetic rhythm, where
Oh
he's
yeah.
talking, yeah, he's like, yeah, if you change the sound of the drum, you can actually get a totally different sound, like doom, 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 doom. And it's like it goes from hip hop to drum and bass, and then he starts chopping it up, and it's almost like a lesson in
Yeah.
drum programming.
Right.
And I was just like look, he even teaches you how to do it here in a way, and he's got someone like curating, like narrating this thing. So the whole album is a journey, and you know, it goes back and forth, and it's just got that those the movie samples that he used in it throughout were phenomenal. I mean, his selection of sampling and his sources were just, it was amazing to me.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it opened my mind and my eyes and my ears, and it made me think like, okay, there's really no limit to what I can do in my own work, and so
Yeah.
it was inspirational in that way.
Wow. You guys like share so many of the same fucking words. It's amazing. So that's cool, man. I mean, what a great experience to have, and like kind of a great way to kind of like speak to how influential and important this record was to your life and to your
Yeah.
kind of your development as a
Mm.
musician. So let's try to talk about this album a little bit, like track by track.
Mm.
Um, so if you start this record and you know it starts off with the first song, "Weapons of Mass Destruction,"
Yeah.
which I mean, immediately grabbing just because of the sample work that's been used in there. You know, kind of like opens up with a sci-fi kind of like dialogue, which I thought was Flash Gordon, but I don't think it is. I guess it's like maybe Star Trek or something.
No, there's some Flash Gordon stuff in there.
Was that it? Like
It's
what it
like we
opens
want
with?
to, yeah, it's Ming, isn't it?
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I think it is. Just like he likes to play with things before Annihilation.
Yeah, Right.
And that's when it
Okay.
drops into the beat. I thought that's what that was from.
Yeah, I didn't
I
double
never
check.
double check. Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
check.
It's pretty great though. I mean, and so immediately like you can feel the vibe of this album is different than his first record. Like were you familiar with his first record?
I got it after I got this one.
Oh, okay. And
I
what
went
did you
back.
think about it
I like
comparatively?
it was it was more hip hop, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I felt
yeah.
like it kind of played like a straight like 70s soul record kind of.
Yeah. It was more funky and it was down tempo and I liked it, but after I heard this one first, I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep it in my collection, but like this was the one that changed everything for me. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, and so it speaks to a lot of like, well, let me just share this with you. So, I had read that a lot of the non musical influence for Mike at this point kind of came from William Cooper's conspiracy novel "Behold a Pale Horse."
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
are
there's
you
a lot of
familiar
that
with
in it.
that?
I've only through this record. That's
Oh,
how I
okay.
found out about it. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Have you ever dug into that any further?
Not really. No.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. I don't know.
Oh,
I listened to the whole audiobook actually after I found that out just to kind of get a feel for like what is this and what does this mean and how does this relate to like this music? I mean, and it's definitely very conspiracy minded,
yeah.
but does it kind of like mirror our existence as it is currently in at least America? It kind of does, yeah. It's a little
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. It's I'm being in Sweden. I only see, I experience everything secondhand from the news,
Sure.
and I'm blown away of what's going on. And so yeah, I can see why an album like this, those samples and like even the sample and later in the album, it's like and behold, the pale horse and death followed with him. I mean
Right.
I mean it's pretty gnarly
Yeah.
dystopian kind of reality that's going on.
Right. But then the music, I mean, is so it's not a lot of it is upbeat for sure.
Yeah.
I this is the weird part about this style of music, right? Is that so lyrically and kind of like your first impressions of it based on the song titles and then some of the sampling that kind of like gives you a lyrical or a vocal perception to kind of take away from it. Dystopian kind of like I don't know, it's heavy, it's dark.
Yeah.
But then the music is melodic and it's upbeat. It's like kind of danceable. It's all of these things. It's a very difficult kind of conundrum to kind of wrap your head around, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to me like it's a lot about the pads and the atmospherics that he uses. You kind of have these constant like tense just textures that are kind of floating above the music, kind of like an eerie drone.
Yeah.
And then and underneath that you have the breaks and the bass, and then those samples just come in during the different drops and the breaks in the track. But yeah, he builds the intensity and that just feeling of that tension rather. And, he just keeps it going throughout when he needs to, and then he'll let it breathe and take those things away and just have it kind of throw in like a hip hop sample or this and that. But it always comes back to that menacing. I don't know, just kind of something over looking over your shoulder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just kind of creepy.
Right.
It's always there in this record.
Yeah. Maybe something to feed the paranoia. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he does a good job of that. Yeah. That went well with the bowls, I'm sure. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah,
Let's see. Well, let's move on to the next song, Ultrasonic Sound.
yeah, yes,
Cl-
that one.
Yeah, clearly very different departure, really heavy riff influenced kind of
Yeah.
that track sampling from Bad Brains
Yeah.
is like the key riff in there.
Yeah.
So let me think. So accompanied with the messages of a paranoid America on the dark side of human nature, the sound of Hive's second full-length don't stem too far from his earlier efforts of jazz, hip-hop, and jungle, as we mentioned. Only this time you're hit with a fusion of some of his hardcore punk roots. the most obvious inspirations from his high school days are seen off of this single, Ultrasonic Sound, where he samples the Bad Brains classic Reignition, like you had mentioned. So, I mean, did you also come from a hardcore background? You did, right, in DC?
Yeah. When I was young, we were listening to the Bad Brains and anything from Fugazi, the East Coast stuff, and Black Flag, and Descendants. You know what I mean? Just all kinds of different stuff across the board. Misfits as well, and even like California stuff like No Effects and all that, Epitaph, Bad Religion and stuff like that was really big when I was in high school.
So all of that kind of took a back seat to your new album Unquiet, though. Like there's none of that's really in there.
No, not really. No, there's nothing really upbeat in there. This was more of a listening album and just kind of more of a concept. You know what I mean? So a little more laid back.
Right. I mean, and so that's the weird thing. I mean, I think I may have a question about that somewhere, but yeah, okay. Well, I'll save that for a little later. I'll save that for down the list. But well, so let's move on to the next song, Questionable Directions.
This track, I really love this track because it's got that mix. It's got that really, it's playful. It's got like a kind of an upbeat feel to it, and it's kind of got like a lot of breakdowns, and the drums are spastic. You know what I mean? Like in some of the moments, but it's definitely got that down tempo, like halftime part as well. I think that's a big influence on me because I love to switch between, going from a hip hop sound to down tempo to kind of just let the listener breathe for a minute, or just kind of nod their head, and then it goes more to like those intense, like full on moments.
Right.
Just to kind of balance it out. Because I mean, if you listen to a track, if it was all the heavy jungle the entire time for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, I mean, like it gives you a workout. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh yeah. But I love it when there's space and when it changes up a little bit.
Yeah, what do they call that? Like ear fatigue or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can burn out on it, man.
Yeah, you get burnt. Yeah. So that's why punk songs are so short, I think, for that reason.
Sure. Yeah. You can only take it in small doses before it's just like, okay, I've had enough of this. It's like I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah.
But so lyric, I mean, like just speaking of the words or the phrase questionable directions. I mean, like, do you think that you can interpret that in your own life as it is currently, like, you know, what like,
for
as
sure,
in, like, what led you to moving to Sweden and living there now?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a record called Comparing Paths even at one point, which is kind of similar. But questionable directions, I mean, like, depending on where the choices that you make, I mean, they influence like your entire. I mean, if I hadn't come to Sweden, this album never would have existed. My daughter would have had an entirely different upbringing, and like my whole life would have been different. So, I mean, you kind of just got to go with whatever when you choose, you stick to your guns and you make the best of it. And of course, you're going to have ups and downs regardless of the choice that you make, and any of them. And some choices they pay off immediately, and some they're more the long game, and you get to see where they lead you in the end. You know what I mean? So
sure, yeah. Well, and that leads to the next song, A Chain of Prophecies.
Chain of Prophecies, yeah.
So again, just kind of like interpreting the title of the song as opposed to trying to dissect the song for what it is.
Yeah, Chain of Prophecies, yeah. Chain of Prophecies. I mean, I can come up with my own ideas of what's going to happen in my future. Like, if I do this, then this is going to happen, and this will be my life. And I can kind of come up with scenarios and things that could happen, and kind of be a prophet in my own life, and try to say, okay, this is where I'm headed, but I'm not really sure so much on a global scale. Much about.
Well, I mean. Yeah, but not even so much as prophecies or looking for something kind of more mystical. But did you notice anything that kind of like led up to the events of you moving, or was it just solely that like your daughter was being born and you felt that was the best option?
Actually, I just felt like it was the best option, and I knew that I had a much bigger chance, like with because I wanted to get back more into writing music full time, and I knew that my listener base was more in Europe anyway, and I've previously lived in Belgium for a while, in Germany and Berlin for a bit, and
Hmm.
so I really wanted to be in Europe just to be closer to my music scene and just more opportunities for me here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice. Cool,
yeah.
man. So let's see. Next song is Experiments in Synthetic Rhythm.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
That's the one you were talking about. Yeah, I love that
That
song actually because it works like that. It works like a short story. Like a lot of
yeah.
these songs actually work like that, where they're just kind of like these little snapshots of a little story, and they kind of like are all tied in like in a night, like in a tight little like box, you know,
Mm.
and they
Yeah,
all
yeah,
work so well like individually.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so let's
This
see. So I had
that
asked actually some questions to Mike. So I asked him this question. It's kind of long and kind of like little rambly like I do, but I asked him with songs like Ultrasonic Sound, Questionable Directions, Experiments in Synthetic Rhythms, and Devious Methods. It seems like in a way you're telling the listener exactly what's going to happen, and yet it blows their minds anyway.
mm,
I say every song works as its own short story. If this is right, was that a conscious choice? And so his answer is no, probably not. Although obviously with experiments that had a theme to it. But what I was doing at the time was all based around my record collection, finding samples and just allowing myself to get open and creative on the MPC.
yeah,
The label just let me do my thing and put the record out as I gave it to them. Amazing when I think about it now how much times have changed.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, kind of speaks to a lot of what you were talking about earlier too, like him working on the MPC, which is a piece of equipment, correct?
yeah. NPC 2000. It's an Akai sampler with the pads on it where you can play the drums on the pads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, he was just like going through his record collection, which at the time he also told me he was like doing a lot of crate digging and just like finding all of these obscure records from like the 60s and 70s
yeah,
and like soundtrack stuff or whatever, and that's just kind of like what led to a lot of the music, to all of this music really that he kind of created on this album.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting. So I mean, so going back to this song, I mean, like, how do you experiment with your process, and how many times do you think that you shock yourself?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I mean, I every time I sit down to write a new track, um, it's usually like I'll be in the middle of writing a song, and I will, I'll be experimenting and trying something in a different way. Like, say it's a different amp emulation or a different effects chain. Like, try to distort something in a certain way, like a bass sound or some kind of one of the elements. I'll just be messing with it and it'll come out the wrong way.
Hmm.
And I'll be like, oh, I don't want it to sound like that, but I still like how it sounds. So
Yeah.
I'll take it and I'll save that little snapshot of that song and I'll put it into another session file. And then later on, when I'm looking for something to work on, if I want to just freshen my ears and try to, just get a new clean slate, I'll open up one of those oddball session files and be like, oh, this is that thing that I messed up on earlier. And it sounds weird, but I liked it. Let's see
Right.
what we can do with it now and take it from a new perspective. So that happens a
Right.
lot, to be honest. And sometimes it's garbage, and sometimes it turns out to be amazing. And you never really know until you try, until you really jump in. And you can always like, yeah, you give yourself a couple of days, and sometimes you sit down and it's like Christmas morning as a kid. You open it up and you're like, oh my God, this happened by
Right.
accident. And then you're like, I'm gonna totally take this the full, the stretch of the way. I'm gonna take it to the goal line. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it just you surprise yourself, and those moments are amazing.
Sure.
It's so rewarding when you find something in the sound that you weren't intentionally looking for, but once you identify with it and you give it a personality, and then you start building upon it, then it's really, I think that's what it's all about with experimental music. So
Hmm. Right. Right. Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, that's definitely something to kind of take away as far as like finding little bits of gold when you kind of dig into your extra files, being like, oh, I forgot I even did that thing. That's so cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You just got to revisit it sometime, just down the line. So
Right. Right. And in fresh years too. Just give yourself a break and kind of like cleanse the palate. That's definitely a very good
Exactly.
pointer.
Mm-mm.
Next song, Inside the Hive.
Mm-hmm.
Seems a little bit like kind of a play on words, kind of like introducing you into Hive's world musically, I think, maybe,
Yeah.
kind of. This is great and seems to be like a standout track amongst fans from what I had read, is that like this one for some reason is like high up on people's acknowledgments when they talk about this record.
Yeah.
Have you ever been inside a Hive show?
Have I been to see him play?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I have.
Hmm.
I don't think I
Okay.
have. No, no, no. Maybe I may have been at a party at like a warehouse or something where he was playing at one time, and I saw him briefly, like from the crowd, like a little bit. But it may have been when I had to play in another room or something. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, but
Right.
we may have shared a bill or something, but we never really like. I don't remember experiencing a live concert. But the thing is, like, I my there was a time in my life when I was so busy with shows, I would literally show up in a city for like 3 hours and then get on a plane and then leave again.
Right.
So and then like and so I've actually I've had opportunities to see like people like Square Pusher play like a couple of times on the same bill, and I've saw like 5 minutes of it
Right.
because I had to go do my job as well. So,
Right.
but no, I haven't had the 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 luxury. I wish I would have. I wish I would have.
Sure. You didn't have the time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Right. But so generally speaking about like drum and bass shows, I mean, what is the vibe?
It's usually just really high energy, and the DJ will be telling a story through the music throughout the night, and a lot of times the things about drum and bass shows, when you watch somebody play, the everybody knows some of the bigger hits that they'll play. You know, they'll know some of the songs,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really the bigger DJs, especially. A lot of people get early tracks from other producers that no one's heard yet.
Mm.
So if you go see a DJ who's like a really high profile name, they might play like three or four tracks that everybody knows just because they want to they want to drop the new ones or that
Right.
people might just have that are popular at the time, but they'll also play a bunch of stuff that no one's heard yet that's like specials, like early, that no one's going to hear on the like on Spotify or be able to buy the record for another few months.
Right.
They'll have
Right.
early, so a lot of people's ears are wide open and they're
Mm.
like, what's this, what is that track? And a lot of train spotting going on, and people are like, oh my God, have you heard this? And Shazam doesn't work. You know what I mean? You have to ask someone like, who was that? What is that track? And if you know the DJ and you have the ability to ask them what it is, you might be able to find out what that track was. You know, they might share that information with you,
Yeah.
but it's all, yeah, it's all just about hearing new music. And sometimes, I mean, but jungle is different because jungle is a scene that's more based around classics, and you'll have people making new jungle music, but a lot of jungle DJs play like really old school obscure stuff that really the heads know, like the people who've listened to that style of music for many years. You know,
Right.
you'll get in there and you'll be like, oh man, I can't believe you played this track from, like 92, you know what I mean, that I haven't heard so long. And
Right.
proper, like this, there's a lot of nostalgia in that scene as well. So
Yeah, but even the live audiences in this environment in these like in your scene, I mean, like I've always kind of associated rave culture and stuff like with the whole dancing thing. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that type of thing. But when you're, you know, because here with your album and even Devious Methods to a degree, I mean, like they're complex songs that have an emotional range.
yeah.
I mean, like, so it goes from like bleak to dark themes and so forth.
Mm.
I mean, so where does the audience sit with something like that, or at least what do you expect it
Well,
to like? How do you expect it to land with an audience and your audience?
yeah, well, the thing is, like with this album, the only time I can only play in a normal set that I would play, which is more high energy stuff. I would probably only play like three songs off of this album at a live show,
Mm-hmm.
maybe four. Um, I could start off or make some bridges in between with some of these pieces,
Sure.
to kind of build some intensity and, like I said, again, giving the listener room to breathe and just kind of take a moment to change the tempo or change the vibe a little bit. A lot of the stuff that people make on these albums, on the long players, I think that a lot of the stuff you're only going to listen to at home or on your headphones. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
some of it's for the club and some of it's not. So the shows I think you're going to hear is specific selection that's more that heavy stuff that's made just for that. So
Yeah. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
mm,
I mean, like, so your process and your plan to deliver it to your audience in your show settings.
mhm.
I mean, it's very much similar as any rock musician, really,
Yeah,
because it's I never thought about this consciously, but speaking with you about it now, it's putting it into a different perspective where I'm just like, oh yeah, well we write set lists, and it's the
yeah,
same thing,
it's the
where
same.
you're
Yeah,
like, you know, let's bring them up, let's bring them down, let's like this will give us the time to kind of like get us to relax for a minute, like
yeah,
take a breath, maybe get a drink,
yeah,
whatever you want.
yeah.
And I've just never thought of it that way. I've just kind of always thought of like electronic music in general as kind of like and like rave scene culture as being like it's just about the party. It's just about like going all night and dancing like crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, there are people who do that. You know, it's just about the crazy party and just full on like 100 miles per hour, the entire time.
Right.
But then there's going to be, some people like myself where we approach it more from yeah, like more like a set list where you really need to build these peaks and valleys and kind of just level it out.
Mm.
So it depends on the artist, but the I'm more I do appreciate like more like the industrial electronic scene as well, like Hands Records and what Ad Noiseum used to be in Germany, where you've got like more um, like the hard industrial music that has a lot more emotion, even though it's hard and heavy. There's a lot more of like it's more of a performance rather than
Mm.
just a DJ. You know what I mean? It's like people playing more like on the machines and doing it live, where there's room for yeah, you can experiment more. And like when I do a live show, I could like extend parts. So if I get to a part where I'm like, it's like really like this big emotive, everything, it's really heavy on the emotional side, and I want to bring in this wave before another big impact comes in. I can stretch it out, and if the crowd seems bored, I can shorten that, and I could be like, okay, I'm going right
Right.
into it. But if I want to make it longer, I can be like, oh, let's ride this out. Looks like everyone's kind of like vibing with it and getting into it, and then you
Yeah.
really have the time to build that intensity.
All right. Well, look. I'll end this like right quick. I think we have about one more question left anyway.
Okay.
I can probably skip right down to the bottom. The last song I wanted to talk about was the title track, "Devious Methods."
Hmm.
So let's see. Just to wrap it all up, the title track of the album, "Devious Methods." I think by now it's pretty clear the album does have a dark context of despair and even a through line of existential dread. So let's end with this quote from Hive himself. All right. So you asked the question. I asked you if you had any thoughts that you might like to ask Hive yourself, and so you came up with the question: how have you seen the album age, and do people still bring it up to you rather than your later work? His response was, "I'm noticing Devious Methods is starting to come around again. I think kids are starting to discover it and are hearing something they've never heard before. It seems to be happening organically through word of mouth and perhaps situations like this where maybe it was influential to a certain producer and they are vocal about it and fans take notice. I remember several years ago seeing a live stream of Deadmau5 in the studio setting up his equipment, and he played the first 4 or 5 songs off Devious Methods on vinyl. It was surprising because I didn't know he was a fan, but I've flown under the radar for a long time. I don't really do self-promotion. I hardly ever post on social media. Finding out about me is maybe harder than most, but it's kind of cool, right? I know that when I was unearthing rare finds while crate digging, picking up something amazing that no one knows about is the best." That was the end of the quote, I'm sorry. So that's pretty cool. So in relation to this and his legacy, if you will, I mean, where do you hope Unquiet will end up on this spectrum?
I hope that it's going to be something that the listeners of the music, who've already been around for a while, are going to, keep with their collection as one of the ones where I want you to put on the record and listen to it from front to back in that order that I laid it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully no interruptions or limited interruptions, and just kind of jump into it. And each song tells a little bit of a story in my heart, and some, the way I see these songs, they all represent something to me in a certain time in my life here. And so I want it to be something that people will just look at and think, oh yeah, I didn't have to do this. No one was telling me like, oh, we need another record from you and it needs to sound like this or something like that.
Right.
I want people to look at it and think like, oh, Lynn did this because he wanted to express his point of view and how he felt at the time when he was going through his adjustment and the change in life in Sweden, and his new experiences there. And to new listeners, they might be shocked when they jump back into some of the old stuff. You never know what you're going to get with some of my records, but
It's true.
I definitely think it's a rounded representation of my career as a musician, and just I think I'm proud of it, and I hope that people can, I hope they want to listen to it and yeah, take it for what it is, and not, and just, yeah. I don't want anyone to have expectations. I've heard a lot of great feedback from people close to me who are just now hearing it, and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's beautiful, or it's so peaceful, or stuff like that. And I like those kind of comments. It's nice to hear.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not something that you just throw your arms in the air and just start jumping around. It's not something like that at all. So
Yeah, not really. Maybe a few brief moments, but not too much of that.
yeah, not too much of that. So
All right, that's cool. Well, so the new album is actually currently released. It's been released as of the 23rd
yeah,
on Decay Recordings,
that's correct.
and it's been 10 years since your last official release.
My last official full length. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess that's kind of like along that same lines of just like with you releasing this record. I mean, like showing where you are in your current time, but I mean also like you were saying. You released this because you wanted to release it. You didn't. It's not like you were having any expectations to meet by anybody, really.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
it's just, yeah, I've been doing a lot of like EPs and remix work and collaborations with people over the last 10 years, smaller releases, but this is the first full length I've done, and yeah, it's been I was shocked to even realize it myself. It's been 10 years, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it goes by quick.
it does. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think we've done it.
Great.
Thank you so much for taking the time and talking with me, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the interest, and I really look forward to checking it out later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of luck with the release and your upcoming dates and so forth, and hopefully we'll meet sometime in real world. Vinyl and Vision is a Psychic Static production. Theme song written and performed by Jeff Robbins of 123 Astronaut.